Cop kills man, man kills cop. The media then puts it on loop non-stop. First the shooting, then the looting, and the rioting ensues. This is how our souls we lose. What's up, guys? This is the Gospel according to Mark with a C. He is I, and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. And guys, a couple of people in my comment section of the last video, they requested to know how I feel about the George Floyd murder. And I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for showing me the respect of wanting to know my thoughts on this. You know, because we all, we talk about our fictional world and everything, and our escapism, and we don't like to stay too grounded in politics and some of the real life world things and afflictions that go on out here. So I do thank you for showing me the respect of wanting to know about something and my feelings on something that I probably should have some deep thoughts about. So right off the top, I want to say thank you to you. And I want to also assure, some of the other viewers that are out there that I am well aware of the statistics. I'm well aware of Jared Taylor from American Renaissance, and the other one, who's the other guy who makes videos? It's Jared Taylor, and of course I'm not going to remember now because I'm recording. But he did a book called "White Girl Bleed a Lot," I think was the name. I'm familiar with websites such as Chimp Mania, which does not paint such a flattering picture of black people in America, to say the least. I'm aware of the stats on black crime. I'm aware of the stats on black on white crime. I'm aware of the stats on crime as it relates to black people in America. I don't need to be reminded about that. On the last video, or one of my last videos, I talked about taking these incidents individually. Okay, so there's no need to go tit for tat. Well, you did this to us, so we did this to you. I'm not interested in any of that. I really want to look at these situations and these cases individually. All right, it's the only way that we can be effective when it comes to getting justice. And this one. All right, George Floyd. All of us saw, well, most of us saw the video, those of us who could stomach it. And it was pretty bad, guys. And I don't think I'll ever forget that image. We saw a man die slowly who didn't need to die. All right, we can talk about whether or not he was an idiot in life, whether he was a criminal, some of the things he was into, his life choices. You can dig up old Facebook posts of him. He could be like the worst guy in the world. But there's no wiggle room here. It's like we saw a helpless man who was subdued be killed, by something that was wearing a uniform. All right. And I say something because once I see you do something like that, you're no longer an officer. You're no longer a police officer to me. Anyone who's been watching my videos long enough knows that I come from a law enforcement family. As a matter of fact, I chose to sit here and have the background be what it is because over me, right there, would be my brother. All right, my brother, Tommy. All right, rest in peace, Tommy. I love you very much. Always will. And I hold him dear to my heart. He passed away in 2009 when my son turned 1 year old. All right, that was the last time I saw him at my son's 1 year birthday party. But Tommy was a police detective at the time of his passing. And he had approximately 21, 22 years on the job. All right, his last day on earth, his last day alive, he went to work. He was a very active officer. The police commissioner spoke at his funeral service and told us some of the stories of my brother. And, after that, some of the people that my brother had protected came to meet the family and talk about how my brother had changed their lives. These would be people of all different races and religions and backgrounds, all of them telling stories that even my brother never told me. And he liked to talk about himself, so it was a very, very active career my brother had. He really took pride in going after the bad guys. He particularly loved to defend children, you know, and he was that first guy. He was the first one to go through that door. That door that who knew was going to be on the other side of that door. My brother was the first one. And I was always very proud of him. But I can tell you one thing: in his 22 years, on the job or so, my brother never had to kill anybody. As active as he was, some might even say he was reckless. The way he was. He was very much into comics, the same as me, the same as a lot of you. And he always used to, get on like his Batman stuff. He's like, "This is my city. It's not going to happen in my city. I am the knight," he used to say. He was quite a character, but he would go straight at the bad guys. You know what I mean? All he wanted to do was help people. And like I said, on his very last day on earth, he was helping people. He went to work, even though he was sicker than he ever could have imagined. He was a first responder at 9/11. He developed respiratory problems, and he thought he was some mixture, I guess, between Batman and Superman, because he didn't think that he could actually get sick. But he did. So on that last day, he went into work like any other day. People noticed that he was a little bit disoriented, and his commanding officer made him go to the hospital. He didn't even want to go, but they made him go because of the symptoms that they saw him exhibiting. It turns out he was in cardiac arrest, distress, and I don't want to get too much into the details on that, but he ended up passing away. All right, due to his illness and his sickness. But the point is that my brother was a hell of an officer, a hell of a detective. My father also was a police officer, very, very high ranking at the time of his retirement as well. And he had almost 30 years in. My cousin was also on the job. My mother was a Supreme Court clerk, who dealt with criminals. She was in the criminal, part, of the court, criminal law, justice, all that stuff. My sister's a lawyer, So my family, we're no strangers. And by the way, you might wonder why I didn't follow into law enforcement. Well, I'll get into that later. All right. But my family were into law enforcement. I had a healthy respect for the law. I went to several graduations, from police academies. I shook hands with many, many people, many officers, who were starting off on their career. And I always wished them well, because God knows what they were going to see, what they were going to do in their careers. I was happy for them, but I was also scared for them too. But the point is that the vast majority of police officers out there are just trying to do their job. They're trying to do good for people. They're trying to make a living for their families. And I have nothing but the greatest respect for them. But when I see a situation like this, what happened to George Floyd, that cop, so-called cop, I'm not even going to disrespect cops by calling him a cop, that monster, that animal, who was wearing a uniform, that coward, he gave up all his rights, as far as I'm concerned, to respect as an officer when he did that. When I saw that video, and I'm sure I'm not alone, a lot of us were asking the question, what kind of person kneels on somebody's neck? They put their full weight on that person's neck and just stay there, especially when that person has been handcuffed, they've been subdued, and you're still going to sit there. You have your hands in your pocket. I'll never forget the look on his face for as long as I live. It's like he was totally gone. He didn't even look human to me after a while. You have a crowd of people who are telling you he's dying. Get off of him. You have the man himself, George Floyd, telling you, I'm dying. I can't breathe. He released his bodily fluids. He looked like he peed on himself. His body was in distress. All this man had to do was stand up, and that man wouldn't have died. Meanwhile, you had the other officer, he looked like he might be Asian, and he's standing in front of him, and he's doing nothing to stop him. I'm sure in his mind, he thought he was controlling the crowd and, making sure it didn't turn ugly. But in doing that, you turned your back on on a thing. I don't even want to call him an officer, like I said, on a thing who is actively, slowly, methodically killing a man with a move, with a hold, whatever it was, that's not authorized. You'd be hard pressed in any police academy to find where they're trained to kneel with the full weight of their body on somebody's neck for almost 10 minutes. So every officer who is on the scene is accountable for that. I've seen officers stop each other from roughing people up before, not even, doing something deadly, but maybe they were pushing them around, and I've seen officers say, okay, that's enough, bro, that's enough, They get themselves in check, they reel themselves in. But that's not what we had here. We had a man slowly be killed. And I can't see any way out of this. I think the officer needs to be made an example out of, because we can't have this. There are a lot of people out there who are on edge. There are people who have their biases. They have their prejudices. When you put on that uniform, you have to be above that. Your job is to be above that. You have a rough job to do, this is true. But when you get to the point where you're killing someone and you have people who are telling you that you're killing someone and you're ignoring that and you're staying on top of them to the point where this person dies and you're still on top of their neck, well, you deserve the worst that could possibly happen to you. I can't believe that I saw what I saw. Now listen, my whole family, like I said before, is in law enforcement. And there's a reason why I didn't follow into law enforcement. I said that I was going to talk about it. And usually I make a joke about it. I usually say that I couldn't have been a cop because I would have been a crooked cop. I'm a crooked cop waiting to happen. I know this about myself. You know what I mean? You put me in a room full of drug money, I'm probably going to be at least tempted to take some for the groceries. You know what I'm saying? You get me in a room with a very attractive suspect, then I might do something out of line. You know what I mean? I don't trust myself. So I told myself, well, maybe being a cop isn't the path I should choose. You know what I mean? And honestly, I said that. I can't see myself doing that. I can't see myself doing that type of job, where I have to see the worst that humans do to each other, where I have to see things that drive me crazy like child abuse, and accident scenes and, real life gory situations and stuff. I don't want to spend my life doing that, So even though I did take the test when my brother took it and we both passed, I decided not to do it. I decided to go in a different direction, So I would hope that most people would be honest. If you know that you don't have what it takes to be a police officer, then why do it? Why put on a badge if you know that you have a short temper, if you know that you hate certain people, if you know that you have a complex where you just want to be a bully, because this is not something that just afflicts black people. I've seen video where cops work over white people, white men, white women, just as bad as anybody else. Of course, the media won't show that because they want to, go with their narrative whenever they want to get people riled up. This is what they do. But this is what the problem is, and I refuse in my home to embrace that narrative, of victimhood. I'm not going to raise my son that way. This is a situation of human rights. This is an issue of human rights. And I've been saying that for a long time, that black people will be where we are. This will continue to go on over and over and over again until we stop fighting for black rights and start fighting for human rights. I remember back during the civil rights episode, my grandfathers, my great-grandfathers, they used to carry signs when they were demonstrating, and it used to say, I am a man. I am a man. It didn't say, I am a black man. It says, I am a man. You fight for the rights of a man. You fight for the rights of a woman. You fight for the rights of a child, of a human being. When you allow the media to marginalize you and to marginalize us this way, well then justice will be very, very hard to come by. All right. When I first started seeing this story reported, it said white cop kills black man, and I knew which way we were heading. It's just going to be the same thing that we always do. You know, here comes the outrage. Then here comes the, well, what did the guy do? You know, go back, look at his Facebook page, look at all the things he ever did. You know, we want to believe somehow that the cop was justified in what he did because, of course, we support cops. I'm no different, you know. But what ends up happening after that, if we're able to successfully demonize the person who died, then, like I said, it becomes very, very hard to get justice for that person because, well, he was into, you know, messed up shit in the first place. So, and then that's when the rioting starts. That's when the looting starts. And that's when you lose the sympathy of the people. Now, most people who saw that video of George Floyd dying, being murdered, most people can agree that that was messed up. It was out of line. You know, most people, most right-thinking people want to see justice in this situation. Now, what ends up being a distraction to that justice is that people who couldn't possibly care about George Floyd went out and started rioting and looting. They're all over CNN. They're all over Fox, every major news outlet. You've become a distraction to the process of justice. And that's a problem because now it just looks like black people acting ignorant, acting like some animals, running around tearing up their own neighborhoods. And it's the same thing as it always is. You took the focus away from the vile act that was done, the murder of that man, and you put it on you running into Target, picking up a flat screen TV. You know, now that's what people are talking about more than anything else. Before, there wasn't much anybody could say. It looked pretty bad. You know, you killed an unarmed, restrained man. All you had to do was stand up. You didn't do it. That man lost his life. But now everybody's talking about the rioting and the looting and the burning businesses. And I understand somebody got shot, possibly killed, you know, who was looting. It's a wrong move, and it betrays the fact that there's no leadership today in the black community. No trusted leadership. They can tell people this is not the way to go. Go home. Let justice take its course, and we'll see what happens after that. If you judge each case individually, like I always say, then I can't imagine there's much room for this man to get away with what he did. But when you start linking it in, lumping it in with every other act that you perceive to be racist, well, then it kind of gets lost in that context. You have to judge each case individually. Now, before I go, I also want to make another point, okay? The thing most disturbing to me watching that video was that there were people there who saw the man was dying. They were filming it. You hear all of the commentary. They were telling that animal that he was killing that man. And at some point, I have to wonder, when do we interfere with a murder? When do we stop a murder when we see that it's going on? Because like I said, when it became clear to me that he had no intention of getting off that man's neck to let him live, he stopped being a cop in my eyes, all right? I did a video a long time ago about a group of kids who watched a man drown, in the middle of a lake. That was years ago I did that video. And I wondered, what is it with us? In particular, black people. Do we value each other's lives? We talk about Black Lives Matter. If that were true, with those kids who were black, watch that man who was black drown crying out for help. That was an old video I did. It just reminded me of this. That man said he was dying. He said he couldn't breathe. Everybody who was standing there, I wonder why. Because if I were there, I think I would have had to have done something. I'm not bullshitting here, guys. I think I would have had to have. And it's my worst nightmare because that probably would have been my last day. But one thing I'm not going to do as a man is stand by and watch somebody needlessly die when I can help. I don't raise my son that way. I raise my son to understand there are some things worth fighting for. There are some things worth dying for. And one thing I know about my son, he's such a good kid. One thing I know about him is that if he had found out that I was at the scene when that man was killed, he would have asked me, Dad, why didn't you help? You were there, Dad? Why didn't you do anything? My son knows. This is what I've taught him. So I would have had to have gone up to that other officer, that Asian officer, and I would have given him a chance. I would have said, excuse me, sir. Excuse me. But he's killing that man. I can't let that happen. Either you're going to have to stop me or stop him. You're going to have to stop him or you're going to have to stop me. But I can't let it happen. There are some things that are worth it. This is it. Some people say, oh, well, you got a child to live for. Not like that. Not like that. I teach my son that you have to stand up for what's right. I wouldn't be afraid. I just wouldn't be. So I wonder what's up with that. And I challenge people in the future, we got to learn a lesson from this. That man was no longer a police officer when he murdered that man or was attempting to murder that man in front of you. He was showing no remorse. He dug in even more. If you're in that situation, you have a choice to make. And I just want people thinking about that, because this is not about race. Don't believe what the media is telling us. This is about a mentality. We don't need people like that. We don't need animals like that wearing a uniform. There are plenty of men and women out here wearing that uniform who you can trust. Over 20 years, my brother on the force. Over 30, my father, my cousin, my mother, all the people that they knew. White, black, Latino, Asian, I've known them all. People who are dedicated, true police officers, true law enforcement officers, who never in the course of their whole career had to kill anyone, let alone somebody who was just accused of passing off, counterfeit money or something like that. You know, a few years ago, I was accused of that. I was walking through the mall and I was detained by officers who told me that somebody told them that I fit the description of somebody who had been passing off counterfeit bills. I was detained for over an hour. They went through everything I had. You know, I had no idea what was going on. Everybody was walking past, looking at me. You know, oh yeah, there goes another one. Until finally one of the officers said, okay, you can go. The person, walked by and said it wasn't you. But just that fast, just that simple, just that easy. And I remember my heart beating in my chest. You know what I mean? Oh, the stress. You know what I mean? I thought I was going to catch a heart attack. I was so pissed off. I'm like, you're gonna detain me like a criminal. Never committed a crime in my life, And but anyway, that's how things happen. Like I said, whatever Mr. Lloyd was into, George Floyd, I'm sorry, I can't answer to, but I do know that it didn't deserve the death penalty, not like that. So, guys, I just wanted to share some of my feelings on it, and it's my deepest, most sincere prayer that justice will be served in this case. That person, that coward, that bastard, that animal that was wearing that uniform and wearing that badge, he deserves the worst that he could possibly get. That is my opinion, based upon what I saw. Because that type of disregard for human life, not black, not white, not anything else, that disregard for human life is a danger to us all. We cannot have that. We cannot have that in our society. We can't have that in our armed forces. We can't have that in our police force. And he needs to be made an example out of. All right, guys. Well, I guess that's all I can say about that for now. We'll see how this story goes as it unfolds. I hope that those out there who are doing the rioting and looting, I hope that better sense prevails. And for everyone who sits in their couches and their armchairs and judges those people, who are tearing up their own neighborhood like animals, I really hope that we do something different. Let's stop this sick cycle. Don't let the media keep playing games with us. There's a reason to be outraged here. There's no justification for what those people are doing, but don't let the focus be taken away from what they're doing to citizens out here. For all of the white citizens who are being abused by police, who are being killed by police, that the media wants to ignore so they can fan the flames of resentment between us, I wish them justice as well, and I hope that we're able to rise above this, because that's what they fear the most, that people talk and that they come together. All right, guys, that's it. The video has gone on long. I could talk about this for a long time, but once again, I thank my viewers who asked my opinion on this. I hope it made sense. And all right, guys, guess I'll see you on the next one. Be safe. Gospel according to Mark with a C. Rock on.